when I talk about citizen power, it's worth unpacking both halves of that term, actually. When I say citizen, I'm not talking only, or indeed even primarily, about documentation status under the immigration laws of the United States. I'm talking about a deeper, more capacious conception, an ethical notion of what it means to be a citizen. Basically a participant, a member of the body, a pro-social contributor to the community. Now, here in the United States, that membership in the body has a certain set of cultural and creedal dimensions to it that are very specifically American, right? And it's important to be fluent in that. But number one, I don't mean just United States citizens. Power I define simply this way, as a capacity to ensure that others do as you would like them to do. And you hear the chuckling in the room, and some people are very kind of, wow, that's kind of a...
We're all thinking about how our children get us to do things.
Well, yes, or how people who have the kind of temperament of children, get us to do things that we want to do. But in either case, I think the notion is this capacity is a thing that we are often, as Americans in particular, in a culture that is so small d democratic, where we like to pretend to equality of all kinds, we're uncomfortable being that nakedly candid about what power is. It's me trying to get you to do something that I want you to do, right? But let's be honest, as you joke, I mean, in every circle of relationship, family, workplace, neighbors, we're always as humans trying to do this, right? And power in civic life is how we apply that capacity toward questions of common and public concern. And power in civic life takes many different forms. There are many sources of power that are worth naming and unpacking, as I try to do in the book. Money power, ideas power, people power, social norms power, power of state action, the power of simple force and violence when it comes to that, right? And then you think about what are the conduits through which these various sources of power, forms of power flow? Institutions, networks, narratives, organizations of different kinds, right? When you start combining these sources of power and these conduits of power, that adds up to what we think of colloquially as the power structure, right? But most of the time, we just think colloquially about it. We don't actually unpack the power structure. And so, in this book, I try to lay out 3 core laws of civic power that help frame up not only the strategies that I describe here and the stories that I tell of different activists and engaged citizens around the world, but just help us kind of have a mental framework for this. So the laws quickly are these. Number 1, power compounds, it concentrates. That's just a basic law of life and nature, right? The rich get richer, those who have clout get more clout, those who have some reputation tend to get more reputation, and that is the nature of kind of compounding systems when left to themselves. In a similar sense, powerlessness compounds. And this is, whether you take a gospel approach to this in thinking about the Gospel of Matthew, or you take a complex adaptive systems scientific approach to it, it's the same lesson, power compounds. Law number 2, power justifies itself. So at every turn, incumbent institutions and individuals who are holders of power are always spinning narratives about why it is that way and why it ought to be that way, right? In a different age, it was language about divine right and the blessings of the gods. Today, we have various secular forms of that kind of royalism, whether in economic theory. In a different time, there were notions about white supremacy that were baked into our public policy. That was a just so story about why certain people should rule and other people were not fit to rule. Still today in our public life and in business, there are narratives and such stories about why men are cut out for certain kinds of leadership and hard-nosed work in the corporate environment and not women, right? And all of these are stories and fairy tales, and I don't mean to minimize them. I mean, fairy tales matter to humans, right? We believe in them, but they are, in most cases, or in many cases, stories before they are fact. So if all we had were these first 2 laws, that power is always compounding into these monopolized situations, and that power is always justifying itself, you'd get into a pretty terrible doom loop of stuckness and being ground down while being told why you should enjoy being ground down, right? And what breaks us out of that doom loop is law number 3, which is simply this: power is infinite. Power is infinite in civic life. And I know this is a very counterintuitive thing to a lot of people, right? I don't mean when I say that all people are infinitely powerful, or that all of us can be infinitely wealthy, or that at a wave of a wand we can make anything happen like that. But what I do mean is that in civic life, unlike, say, in a physical system, right? The laws of physics tell us that if someone in this room is going to get more heat or energy, someone else in this room has to get less.
So it's not a zero-sum game.
It's not a zero-sum game, right? In civic life, I can generate brand new power out of thin air through the magic act of organizing. If I organize, if I learn to give a public speech, if I learn to frame a set of ideas, if I learn how to use social media to create a meme that mobilizes other people, I haven't diminished by one bit your ability to do these things, right? I haven't taken away anything from your inherent capacity. I've just added to the net amount of power now circulating in this ecosystem. Our relative balance will have shifted, and that's part of the jostling of democracy. But this notion that power is infinite is a reminder, quite simply, that we are able, in situations that seem incredibly stuck and frozen in deep inequity, to change that equation. And I think that's one of the most fundamental truths of civic life that we are seeing play out all around the United States today and all around the world.